Huawei just launched the P20 Lite and P20 Pro in India. We aren't getting the P20 here, but among the two that are arriving on Indian soil, the P20 Pro is most definitely the more interesting one. It's the world's first smartphone to feature a triple camera setup at the rear and is probably the most interesting phone from any company in quite a while. This is Sandeep from RevAtlas, and here's what we feel about the phone so far. The P20 Pro is a beautiful phone. This much the photos and videos you have seen would have already probably told you. However, I'll definitely emphasize that it's even more beautiful in person, and that's surprising since there are 3 holes at the back as well as 2 raised humps, and that's a lot of branding etched onto the phone. Yet you can't help but admire the phone. It's available in both black and blue in India, and sadly the Twilight Gradient variant won't be making its way here. Regardless of which one you choose, the extremely glossy and mirror finished glass will mean that it's a fingerprint magnet, so keep your sleeves and microfiber cloth at the ready. The phone feels light when you use it, but when you try compare it against other phones, you'll notice it's actually just good weight distribution. The higher screen to body ratio and wider aspect ratio results in a compact phone that is smaller than the likes of the Galaxy S9 Plus, despite having a screen that's nearly as big. The display has an unusual aspect ratio of 18.7:9 and a resulting Full HD Plus resolution of 2240 by 1080 pixels. This time around, Huawei has gone for a AMOLED display for its device that gives much better contrast ratio as well as sunlight legibility that's almost as good as Galaxy lineup devices and also better than its predecessors. The phone feels good to hold, and despite the glossy back, it does grip well. This is mostly owing to a texture of the aluminum frame which feels grippy despite the polished look. The back glass also blends in very well with the frame and it feels really well put together. The buttons on the right are solid and offer good tactile feedback. The contrasting red accent on the power key is nice too. In India we get the dual SIM variant, but there is no scope for memory expansion. Users have to make use of the built-in 128 gigs of storage, but that should be plenty enough for most. The phone is powered by a Kirin 970 chipset and has 6 gigs of RAM. So far the performance has been great and it feels more fluid than any other Android flagship out there apart from the Pixel and perhaps even OnePlus devices. But that could be due to the heavier EMUI 8.1 on top of Android 8.1 Oreo. The phone also does support Project Treble, by the way. The front does have the notch which many people may like or hate, but there's a way to conceal the notch within the settings in case you aren't a fan of it. I'm not a big fan of it either, but we may have to put up with it until manufacturers find a way to conceal all those sensors. Speaking of which, Huawei has managed to cram the 24 megapixel f2 camera, ambient light and proximity sensors, a notification LED, as well as an earpiece that doubles up as a secondary speaker. The primary speaker is located at the bottom along with the USB Type-C port and dummy grill that houses the microphone. At the top is an IR blaster and secondary microphone. The phone is 7.8mm in terms of thickness, which is surprising since the S9 Plus, with its larger footprint and one less camera, is still 8.5mm thick despite having a smaller 3500 mAh battery compared to the 4000 mAh battery on this one. Battery life so far has given around 6+ hours of screen on time, but we'll let you know the full stats in our review. The back panel houses 3 camera sensors. The primary one is a huge 1x1.7 inch sensor with f1.8 aperture, and you have the 8MP f2.4 telephoto lens also housed in the same island. The sensor below the other two is a 20MP monochrome one with f1.6 aperture. All 3 sensors have OIS, and there's also a color sensor, LED flash and laser autofocus to go along with the face detection autofocus. All in all, it makes for a very impressive camera setup, and here are some samples to help you get an idea on what to expect. We'll dive deep into a camera during our review. The P20 Pro is a very impressive piece of hardware, and so far it seems that Huawei has managed to make a great device that could give both the S9 Plus and iPhone X a run for their money. But we'll need to put it through its paces before the final conclusion. Thanks for watching, see you again in the next one.